By the time Adrian Cole finally understood I was not coming back, I was 8 months pregnant and had been married to another man for 6 weeks. According to Matthew, Adrian's executive assistant, the moment happened in Adrian's corner office on a gray Seattle morning. Adrian had been standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at the city as if everything below belonged to him. "She's 8 months pregnant," he said, tossing his phone onto his desk. "Send a car for Claire tomorrow. The nursery at the lake house is finished. There is no reason for her to stay in that little apartment any longer." Matthew did not move. Adrian turned. "Is there a problem?" Matthew walked to the desk and placed a printed document in front of him. "Mr. Cole, Claire isn't moving back." "Is she still throwing a tantrum?" "No." Matthew paused before saying the words Adrian had never imagined hearing. "She got married." The document was a King County marriage record. Bride, Claire Bennett. Groom, Ethan Hayes. Date of marriage, 6 weeks earlier. Adrian stared at the page as though the two names could not possibly belong on the same legal document. "What is this?" "A public marriage record." "I know what it is." Adrian's voice turned cold. "Why is Claire's name on it?" Matthew opened a photo on his tablet. It had been posted by Ethan's sister after our small city hall ceremony. I was wearing a simple ivory dress, and my pregnancy was impossible to miss. Ethan stood beside me with one hand resting lightly behind my back, not pulling me toward him, not claiming me for the camera, just studying me in case I needed him. I was not looking at the photographer. I was looking at Ethan, and I was smiling. The caption read, "Some people travel a long way before they finally find home." Adrian had known me for 3 years. He had seen me across negotiation tables, calm while million-dollar deals fell apart around us. He had seen me at 2 in the morning rewriting speeches he had forgotten to review. He had seen me cry silently in the parking garage after my mother's funeral because I could not bear to do it where anyone might notice. But he had never seen me smile like that. Not politely. Not cautiously. Not while waiting to see whether he approved. I looked safe. "She's carrying my child," Adrian said, his hand tightening around the tablet. "How could she marry someone else?" Matthew lowered his eyes. "Her attorney notified both legal teams 6 weeks ago. Her marriage does not interfere with your right to establish legal parentage after the baby is born." I never saw it. It was sent to your private email and copied to family counsel. Adrian remembered the message then. He had been fighting an internal board investigation and had barely glanced at the subject line before closing it. Marriage registration and parentage documentation. He had assumed it was another attempt to pressure him. Another emotional move that would disappear once I calmed down. For 3 years, whenever we argued, I had always been the first one back at the office. I had always finished the report, corrected the schedule, prepared the presentation, and quietly repaired whatever he had broken. He believed I would do it again. He was wrong. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 6 months earlier, I sat on the cold tile floor of our bathroom staring at 2 pink lines. Outside the door, Adrian was talking to Natalie. "I remember Paris," he said, his voice low and gentle. "Next month. I promise." There was a pause. Then he laughed softly. "Don't be angry. When have I ever broken a promise to you?" I looked down at the pregnancy test in my hand. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Adrian had made me promises for 3 years. After the quarterly audit. After his father stepped back from the board. After the acquisition. After Natalie and the Cole family finally ended their business arrangement. There was always one more obstacle between me and the life he said we would have. The call ended. A moment later, Adrian opened the bathroom door. He frowned when he saw me sitting on the floor. "What's wrong?" I held out the test. He stared at it for several seconds. He did not smile. He did not pull me into his arms. His first question was, "Are you sure?" "I'll see my doctor tomorrow. Don't tell anyone yet." I looked up. "Not even your family?" "Especially not my family." "Why?" "The acquisition isn't finished. There are people on the board waiting for me to make a mistake. If this gets out now, it becomes a distraction." He crouched beside me and took my hand. "Just give me a little time." A little time. Those words had held me in place for 3 years. I should have walked away long before that night, but Adrian had not always been the man who looked at our baby as a potential public relations problem. 3 years earlier, when my mother was dying, he had canceled a flight to New York and sat with me in a hospital corridor until sunrise. He had brought me coffee I never drank, argued with the billing department when they made a mistake, and stayed after my mother was gone because I could not make myself stand up. After the funeral, he shielded me from every call and email from the company. He gave me a month off and told anyone who complained that they could answer to him. When I returned, he moved me from an administrative role into the executive office. He taught me how to prepare for hostile directors, how to read the real concern behind an investor's polite question, and how to stay silent until the other side revealed what they wanted. I believed the tenderness he had shown me in that hospital hallway was the truest part of him. Every time he disappointed me, I reached back for that memory. I told myself the man who had held my hand through the worst night of my life was still there. The next morning, my doctor confirmed that I was 9 weeks pregnant. Adrian did not come with me. He was in San Francisco for a merger meeting, so he sent a driver and a bouquet of white roses. The card said only, "Take care of yourself." The flowers began to brown after 3 days. A week later, Adrian finally came home. I was in the kitchen sipping ginger tea when he walked into the penthouse, loosened his tie, and opened the refrigerator. "Still nauseous?" he asked. "Mostly in the mornings." "Good. That sounds manageable." He took out a bottle of sparkling water. "The lake house is ready. You'll move next week." I blinked. "Why?" "It's quiet. More privacy. Once you start showing, the penthouse will be inconvenient." For one brief, foolish moment, I thought he was finally planning around me and the baby. Then he added, "Natalie will move in too." My fingers tightened around the mug. "Who?" "Natalie. Her apartment is being renovated. The lake house has more than enough space, and she can keep you company." I stared at him. "You want me to live with your ex-fiancé while I'm pregnant with your child?" His expression hardened slightly. "She's not just my ex-fiancé. She is a brand consultant for the company, and I've known her most of my life." "You're still seeing her, aren't you?" The kitchen went quiet. He did not deny it. I felt something inside me settle into place. When did it start again? We never completely stopped speaking. He said it as though he were explaining a long-standing business arrangement that I should have understood without being told. "Natalie understands my family. She knows how to deal with the board and the press. You don't need to turn her into an enemy." "Then what am I supposed to consider her?" "Claire." He sighed. "You're pregnant. Don't get trapped in emotions that don't help anyone." "Emotions that don't help anyone?" "I will take care of you and the baby. You will have everything you need. And Natalie? Her situation is different." "How?" He was quiet for a moment. "Her family has worked with Cole Holdings for decades. My father accepts her. The board accepts her." The pressure in my chest built slowly, painfully. "So she is suitable to be your wife." "I didn't say that." "Then what am I?" "You're the person I trust more than anyone." "What else?" "You're the mother of my child." "And a wife." He looked away. "This isn't the time to discuss marriage." "When will it be the time?" "After the acquisition. After the board settles down. After my father stops interfering in my decisions." The excuses had changed over the years. The answer never had. Wait. I had waited from 29 to 32. Now I was carrying his child, and he still expected me to wait while another woman moved into a house he claimed was meant for me. "I'm not moving to the lake house," I said. His face changed. "I'm not asking for your approval." I looked at him and understood, finally, what the expensive gifts, the private vacations, the hidden dinners, and the endless promises had really been. They were not love. They were management. Adrian managed me the way he managed a company. He gave me enough comfort that leaving felt unreasonable, enough affection that I kept hoping, and just enough uncertainty that I worked harder to prove I deserved more. But he had never intended to make me his equal. "I understand," I said. He mistook my calm for surrender. "Get some rest. I still need you to review the board materials tomorrow morning." He walked out of the kitchen and called Natalie again. From the hallway, I heard him say, "She'll move." I did not sleep that night. I sat in the study and began organizing 3 years of emails, calendars, expense approvals, travel records, and messages. I was not preparing revenge. I was preparing to survive the version of the story Adrian would tell once I was gone. He would say we had only been employer and employee. He would say every arrangement had been my choice. He might even say the baby was my attempt to force my way into his family. At 3 a.m, I emailed Maya Singh, an employment attorney I had worked with during a layoff dispute 2 years earlier. My message was one sentence. I need to end a relationship involving my employer, my pregnancy, and 3 years of undisclosed personal history. Please tell me how to protect myself and my child. Her answer arrived before 9. Do not resign impulsively. Do not delete anything. Do not make another major decision until we talk. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Natalie arrived at the penthouse before Adrian's movers were even scheduled. That afternoon, I had just left another prenatal appointment when a message appeared on my phone. I'm here. Adrian said you're moving to the lake house next week, so I'm helping organize your things. I stood outside the apartment door for several seconds before going in. A pair of red heels sat in the entryway. Natalie was in the living room directing 2 movers as if she had owned the place for years. Move the sofa a little to the left, she said. Adrian hates it directly facing the television. I closed the door behind me. How did you get in? She turned and lifted a silver key from her fingers. Adrian gave it to me. He asked you to pack my things? He asked me to get familiar with everything before we move. Her gaze traveled to my stomach, where there was still barely anything to see beneath my coat. I've already chosen the rooms at the lake house. You chose them. The primary bedroom has the best light and opens onto the terrace, so I'll take that one. You need quiet now, and the suite at the end of the hall is farther from the main living area. It will be better for you. I stared at her. Adrian told me the primary suite was being prepared for me. Her smile did not move. The word was almost gentle. I did not raise my voice. I opened the message thread between us and held my phone at my side. Adrian knows you're taking the primary bedroom? Of course. And he knows you plan to put me at the end of the hall? It was his idea. Why would you agree to live with me? For the first time, she seemed to consider whether honesty might hurt me more than another polished lie. Because we can finally stop pretending. Pretending what? That you and I have the same place in his life. She walked closer. Natalie was beautiful in the composed, expensive way magazines loved. Every strand of hair sat exactly where it belonged. Her red coat looked as if it had never touched the back of a chair. You're very capable, Claire, she said. You can organize his life, solve his problems, run his office, and apparently give him a child. But being an excellent executive assistant does not make someone an appropriate wife. I said nothing. You'll have a house, money, and the best medical care available, she continued. I'll have the position that was always meant to be mine. And Adrian? What does he get? Her answer came without hesitation. Everything. I looked down and typed a message to her, even though she was standing 3 feet away. So this is the arrangement you and Adrian made? You take the primary bedroom. I take the guest suite. My role is to stay calm, have the baby, and accept financial support? Her phone chimed. She read the message and looked amused. Then she replied, Yes, everyone gets what they need. You get the baby and the money. I get the place of his wife. I read it once and locked my screen. Thank you, I said. Her brows drew together. For what? For finally making it clear. That night, I sent the messages to Maya. She read them across the table in her office, then looked at me over the top of the page. What do you want to do? Leave him. And your job. Leave that too. She shook her head. Do not lose your income, your health insurance, and your leverage on the same day. So I keep pretending nothing happened? No. She pushed the printed messages back to me. You stop pretending you have no choices. There is a difference. For the next 2 weeks, I went to work exactly as usual. I led executive meetings, rewrote investor materials, and prepared acquisition files Adrian had not bothered to read closely enough. But I stopped hiding for him. I filed a formal disclosure with Human Resources stating that I had been in an undisclosed intimate relationship with the CEO for 3 years and that I was pregnant. I requested a new reporting structure and asked that all communications regarding my pregnancy, title, workload, and employment status be preserved. The head of HR went pale while reading the form. Claire, are you certain you want to file this formally? Yes. Does Adrian know? This is a compliance disclosure. It does not require his permission. He came into my office the next morning without knocking. Withdraw it. I closed my laptop. No, you're bringing a private matter into the company. You maintained a 3-year relationship with a direct report and never disclosed it. You brought it into the company long before I did. This could have been handled between us. Your private solution was to move me into a house with Natalie and give her the primary bedroom. He crossed the room until he stood in front of my desk. What do you want? I want to end our relationship. For the first time since I had known him, he looked genuinely caught off guard. What did you say? I've found an apartment. I placed a transition plan on the desk. I will complete a 4-week handoff, then I am leaving Cole Holdings. I don't agree. This is notice, not a request. His jaw tightened. Who do you think will hire a pregnant former executive assistant after you walk away from this company? The words landed exactly where he intended them to. For years, my professional identity had been attached to him so closely that people often called me Adrian's right hand before they called me by my own title. But fear did not sound like truth anymore. That is my problem. What about medical expenses? Also my problem. The baby is not yours alone. I looked up at him. When I sat alone in the doctor's office, when I was vomiting between meetings, and when I had to decide whether I could safely keep working, you didn't say that. He was quiet. Then his voice softened, the way it always did when control was slipping. You're emotional. We'll talk after the baby is born. I am more certain now than I have been in 3 years. For weeks later, I finished the transition. I returned my laptop, access badge, and office keys to human resources. I took no company documents, no confidential files, and nothing that Adrian could later accuse me of stealing. Before leaving, I stood for one last moment beside the desk outside his office. For years, I had believed that working 10 feet away from Adrian meant I was close to the center of his life. Now I understood that the desk had simply placed me where he could reach me whenever he needed something. I walked out without saying goodbye. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. My new apartment had 2 bedrooms, old hardwood floors, and a kitchen narrow enough that opening the dishwasher blocked half the room. There was no skyline view, no private elevator, no driver downstairs. But I was the only person with a key. Ethan Hayes came on moving day. We had met in college, back when I wore secondhand coats and worked weekends in the campus library. After graduation, I joined Cole Holdings and climbed from administrative assistant to director of executive operations. Ethan became a corporate attorney, then left a large firm to start a risk management company with 2 partners. 3 years earlier, he had invited me to join the business when it was still small enough to fit around one conference table. I turned him down. At the time, Adrian had promised our relationship would be public soon. Ethan did not argue with me. He did not ask questions I was not ready to answer. He simply said the door was open if I ever changed my mind. Now he carried the last box into my kitchen and set it down carefully. How many are left? 2 boxes of books. He glanced at the label on the one he had just moved. Mom, letters and photos. Does Adrian know where you live? No. He'll find out eventually. I know. Ethan took a business card from his wallet and placed it on the counter. Family law attorney. She is good, direct, and not impressed by expensive men. I picked up the card. Will you call her for me? No. I looked at him, surprised. He pulled out one of the kitchen chairs. I'll tell you whether I trust her. I'll go with you if you want. But you make the call and you make the decisions. Do you really need to lecture me today? I'm not lecturing you. His voice was calm, but there was nothing soft or indulgent in it. Adrian has made too many decisions for you. I don't want to become another man who does the same thing because he thinks he knows what is best. It was not the comforting answer I expected. It was better. At the door, Ethan paused. I'm not going to ask why you stayed for 3 years. I looked at him. But if you need a friend, a lawyer, or someone who will answer the phone at 2 in the morning, call me. After he left, I stood in the center of my small living room and cried for the first time since I had seen those 2 pink lines. Not because I wanted Adrian back. Because nearly everyone who knew what happened had asked why I would give up the money, the house, the protection, and the life he offered. Ethan was the first person who asked what I needed. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. At first, Adrian did not believe I was really gone. During the first week, he still instructed Matthew to send documents to my old email address. During the second, he discovered no one else remembered that one of the investors had a severe shellfish allergy, and no one could locate a forgotten contract clause 10 minutes before a board meeting. During the third week, he called me at 1 in the morning. I did not answer. The next day, he sent a message. "Come home tonight. We need to talk." I replied with one line. All communication must go through counsel. That was when he finally understood I was not waiting for him to apologize. I had removed myself from his life. Soon afterward, I received formal legal papers. Adrian requested a process to establish biological parentage after the birth, access to necessary pregnancy-related health information, and an early framework for discussing care once the baby arrived. The documents also emphasized that I had recently left my job and lived in a modest apartment, while Adrian had extensive financial resources, multiple homes, and access to full-time childcare. I read every page twice. "He's using the baby to make me come back," I told my family law attorney. "He's testing whether the loss of your job and your old home will make you doubt yourself," she said. "It hasn't." "Then don't argue about your relationship in a legal filing. We answer only what concerns the child." I had never denied that Adrian was the baby's biological father. Our attorneys began preparing the appropriate parentage documents while keeping them separate from my medical privacy, employment decisions, residence, and any future marriage. We also put a temporary written boundary in place. Adrian was not to appear at my home or workplace without permission. He could no longer send a car and assume I would get into it. He could no longer stand outside my door and call persistence concern. For the first time, he learned that money and legal representation could not automatically return me to the position he had chosen for me. At the same time, Cole Holdings opened an internal review. My disclosure led investigators to look at Natalie's consulting arrangements. Over 2 years, the company had paid for a long list of travel, lodging, events, and expenses submitted under brand strategy. Some were legitimate. Others had little connection to any actual project. Several had bypassed ordinary approval procedures. Adrian was the final approver. When investigators contacted me, I did not embellish anything. I did not describe Natalie as a villain or Adrian as a monster. I gave dates, messages, approvals, and the limits of what I personally knew. That frightened Adrian more than anger would have. He drove to my building and demanded to see me. I came down to the lobby but did not open the glass security door between us. "You gave company records to the board," he asked. "I cooperated with an authorized investigation. Those documents passed through your office too, which is why I preserved them and answered questions about my own role." He stepped closer to the glass. "Are you trying to destroy me?" I looked at the man I had once believed could protect me from anything. "I didn't destroy you. I stopped hiding what you did." His face changed. "I can end things with Natalie completely." I said nothing. "I can publicly acknowledge the baby." "You still don't understand." "Then tell me what to do." It was the first time in 3 years that Adrian had asked me what I wanted instead of explaining what he had decided. It was also too late. "Respect my decision to leave." I turned toward the elevator. He did not follow. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. A few weeks later, I interviewed formally with Ethan's company. He did not sit in on the final evaluation. His co-founder, the finance director, and an outside human resources advisor reviewed my work history and a 90-day operations plan I had prepared for them. They challenged nearly every assumption in it. One of the partners asked whether I was prepared to move from a global corporation with layers of staff to a company where senior leaders still fix the conference room projector themselves. "Yes," I said. At Cole Holdings, I spent half my time solving problems created by hierarchy. Here, at least the problems are honest. They offered me the position of vice president of operations. It had not been created as a favor. The company had hired a search firm 6 months earlier and had interviewed 4 other candidates. Ethan placed the offer package in front of me, including salary, benefits, leave policy, and performance expectations. "No one lowered the standard because you're pregnant," he said. "And you do not owe me a yes because I helped you move." I read the first page. This does not sound like an invitation between friends. Work isn't friendship. You really know how to make someone feel wanted. The corner of his mouth lifted. They chose you because you can walk into a growing company and make it stop tripping over itself. That is more useful than flattery. I accepted. My relationship with Ethan did not become romantic overnight. He attended a prenatal class with me when my doctor suggested I bring someone I trusted. He delivered a heating pad to my apartment when leg cramps kept me awake. He helped assemble a crib, misread the instructions, and had to take one side apart twice. He was dependable, but not perfect. Once, he was 20 minutes late for a prenatal class because a client meeting ran over. I waited in the parking lot, watching couples hurry inside together until an old panic rose in my chest. I texted him, "Don't come. I'll go alone." He arrived as I was opening my car door. "I'm late," he said, slightly out of breath. I noticed. The client meeting turned into a crisis. Adrian always had a reason to. The words came out sharper than I intended. Ethan went still. For a moment, I expected him to defend himself, to explain that his crisis had been different, important, unavoidable. Instead, he nodded. "You're right." The next day, he rescheduled the class and put every important appointment I had shared with him into his calendar. "I can't promise I'll never be late," he said. "But I can promise I won't leave you carrying the consequences every time." He also had a habit of approaching emotional problems like legal assignments. One evening, he drafted a response to Adrian's attorney without asking me and sent it for my approval. I read it, then pushed the laptop back across the table. "This is my case." He blinked. "I was trying to save you time. You should have asked first." He looked at the screen, then at me. "You're right. I'm sorry." He deleted the draft. "You decide what you want to say. If you ask me to review it later, I will." That was when I began to understand the true difference between Ethan and Adrian. It was not that Ethan never made mistakes. It was that when I said no, he stopped. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When I was 5 months pregnant, Adrian appeared outside my new office building. He had learned about Ethan by then. I stepped through the lobby doors and found Adrian standing beside a black car, wearing a charcoal suit and the expression he used before hostile negotiations. "You would rather work for him than come back?" he asked. "I don't work for Ethan. I'm the vice president of operations at a company with fewer than 100 employees. You gave up Cole Holdings for this. At least here I am not the CEO's secret." His eyes moved past me. Ethan had just come out of the building. He walked over and took the laptop bag from my hand. "Your doctor said no heavy bags this week," he reminded me. It was a small, ordinary gesture. That made Adrian hate it more. "Mr. Hayes," Adrian said, "this is between Claire and me." Ethan did not answer for me. He looked at me and waited. I turned to Adrian. "Do not come to my workplace again. I wanted to see how you were doing." "No. You wanted to see whether leaving you had made my life worse." His lips parted, but he said nothing. I walked away with Ethan. At the edge of the parking lot, I looked back once. Adrian was still standing beside the car. For the first time, I saw real uncertainty on his face. Not fear of the board. Not concern about legal parentage. He was afraid because my life was moving forward and he was no longer at its center. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The rain was coming down hard after one of the mediation meetings. Inside, Adrian's attorney had proposed what he called a practical compromise. If I reduced my cooperation with the internal company investigation and reconsidered moving into the lake house, Adrian would pause further legal pressure until after the birth. I rejected the proposal before my attorney finished reading it. Outside the building, Ethan opened an umbrella over us. We stood at the top of the wet stone steps while traffic hissed through the street below. "Why do you keep helping me?" I asked. "Because you're my friend." "Only my friend?" He was quiet. Then he said no. He did not look away. "I've loved you for years." My breath caught. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "I did once. Badly." "When?" 3 years ago. I asked you to join the company and invited you to a music festival in Portland. I remembered. I had told him I was too busy with work. Adrian had promised we would take a private trip after the audit, and I had kept the weekend free for him instead. He canceled 2 days before we were supposed to leave. That was not a declaration of love, I told Ethan. For someone who was terrible at declaring anything, it was significant. I laughed before I could stop myself. His expression remained serious. I'm not telling you because I expect an answer now. Then why tell me? Because someday, when you're ready to choose someone again, I want you to know I'm here. I want you to see me. He did not kiss me. He did not turn the moment into a demand. He walked me to my car, waited until I was safely inside, and left me with the freedom to decide what his words meant. Over the next month, I watched him. Not the way I had once watched Adrian, searching for proof that promises would eventually become real. I watched what Ethan did when there was nothing to gain. He checked whether I wanted company before showing up. He asked before discussing my legal case. He disagreed with me without speaking as though disagreement made me irrational. When he was wrong, he apologized without turning the apology into an explanation of why I should forgive him. The affection I felt for him did not arrive like lightning. It grew quietly in the spaces where fear used to live. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. A little more than a month later, Ethan proposed. He did not choose the courthouse, the lawyer's office, or the hospital. He did not ask while I was crying or frightened. It happened on an ordinary Saturday after we finished assembling the crib. He placed a prenuptial agreement and a small ring box on my dining table. I stared at both. Are you leading with the contract or the ring? I haven't decided which one gives me a better chance. That may be the least romantic sentence ever spoken during a proposal. I can start over. Too late. Continue. He slid the agreement toward me. Our property would remain separate unless we chose otherwise. I would keep my name and my career. Neither of us could use the marriage to interfere with the baby's relationship with his biological father. Before we registered the marriage, our attorneys would complete the necessary parentage documents. Ethan would not become the child's presumed legal father merely because we married before the birth, and Adrian could not use the parentage process to control my marriage or residence. Ethan would be part of the baby's family, but he would not use our marriage to erase Adrian or make choices the child might one day want to make for himself. I read the document carefully. You don't mind that I'm carrying another man's child? I mind that he convinced your value depended on staying available to him. I haven't completely let go of everything that happened. I didn't ask you to promise that you had. Then why do you want to marry me? He looked at me with the steady expression that had become more comforting than any grand speech. Because I want to build a home with you. He took a breath. Not because I think you need to be rescued. You don't. I want to be the person you choose when no one is forcing you to choose at all. I was quiet for a long time. Then I held out my hand. You had better plan a ceremony that does not require me to manage the schedule. His relief appeared slowly, almost cautiously. Is that a yes? It is a conditional yes. I expected nothing less. We married at City Hall when I was about 7 months pregnant. There was no ballroom, no corporate guest list, and no press release. Only a few close friends, Maya, Ethan's sister, and his 2 business partners. When the photographer raised the camera, the baby kicked hard enough to make me look down. Ethan put his hand near my back. Is he protesting? Probably. We didn't ask for his vote. He can appeal after birth. I laughed. The photographer caught that moment. 6 weeks later, the picture landed on Adrian's desk. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After seeing the marriage record, Adrian ordered Matthew to investigate Ethan. I want his clients, his debts, his past lawsuits, and anything else that can be used against him. Matthew stood in front of the desk. I've compiled the public records. What about private information? I won't obtain it improperly. Adrian looked up slowly. Are you refusing an instruction? I'm following company compliance policy. The board is reviewing whether senior leadership continues to bypass it. Adrian stared at him. Do you think I drove her away too? Matthew chose his answer carefully. Before Claire left, she created a complete transition plan for everyone who replaced her. He paused. The only thing she did not leave you was another way to control her. A few days later, Matthew spoke to the internal investigators. He confirmed that Adrian had pressured human resources to remove my disclosure and had asked staff to use company access to obtain my new address and private schedule. Matthew did not speculate about motives. He stated facts. Natalie was reaching her own conclusion at the same time. After I left, Adrian did not propose to her. He did not announce their relationship or give her the formal position she believed she had won. Instead, He expected her to handle the press, calm his father, and explain questionable expenses to the board. When he learned I had married Ethan, he returned to the lake house and found Natalie standing in the unfinished nursery. "You drove her away," he said. Natalie looked at him for a long moment. "You gave me the key to her home. I didn't tell you to humiliate her. You knew I would." Her voice began to shake. "You needed me to say the cruel things for you. Then you could keep pretending you had never truly rejected her." Adrian said nothing. "Move out," he finally said. Natalie stared at him. "What?" "The lake house arrangement is over. So is the consulting contract. You're going to leave me responsible for the expense investigation? You submitted the requests. And you approved them." In that moment, Natalie understood that she had never defeated me. When she had been useful, Adrian made her believe she held a special place. Now that she threatened his career, she was as disposable as he had always believed I was. 3 days later, Natalie contacted the investigators and turned over emails and expense records. She did not do it for me. She had not suddenly become a good person. She simply refused to carry Adrian's consequences alone. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When I was 8 months pregnant, Cole Holdings released the results of the internal investigation. The findings confirmed that Adrian had failed to disclose a long-term conflict involving a direct report, bypassed expense controls for some of Natalie's private travel, and attempted to use his authority to influence my employment decisions after I disclosed the relationship and pregnancy. The board suspended him as CEO. He still owned a substantial amount of company stock. He did not lose every dollar or every connection. But for the first time, he lost the title that made people obey before he finished speaking. In the family matter, no one promised Adrian primary custody simply because he had a larger house and more money. The attorneys finalized the paperwork needed to establish parentage after the birth and outlined a temporary process for discussing contact and care. Until then, Adrian was required to respect the no-contact boundaries already in place. He had believed wealth proved he was the more suitable parent. The process forced him to confront a different question. During the pregnancy, had he respected the safety, privacy, and choices of the woman carrying his child? After the final mediation session, Adrian remained seated alone in the conference room. I gathered my documents and prepared to leave. "You won," he said. I stopped. This was never a competition. I lost my position. "Your decisions cost you your position." "And you married Ethan." "Yes." He looked down at the table. "Do you love him?" I considered the question. "I'm learning to love someone who doesn't require me to disappear in order to stay with him." His hands closed slowly over each other. "What about me?" I looked at him and felt no triumph. Only clarity. "You loved the version of me who would never leave you." I opened the door. "She doesn't exist anymore." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Noah arrived 10 days before his due date. At 2 in the morning, I woke with a deep ache across my back and spent several minutes convincing myself it was another false alarm. Then my water broke on the bedroom floor. Ethan was awake before I finished calling his name. He did not panic. He did not ask 5 useless questions. He grabbed the hospital bag, helped me into my coat, and called ahead while I held the kitchen counter through another contraction. Halfway to the hospital, I accused him of driving too slowly. 3 minutes later, I accused him of driving too fast. "I am adjusting continuously," he said, gripping the steering wheel. "Do not use contract language while I am in labor." Understood. No contract language. Another contraction tightened through me. "And don't sound calm. It's irritating. I am terrified." That made me laugh, which immediately made everything hurt more. Labor lasted more than 12 hours. There were moments when the room narrowed to pain, the nurse's voice, and Ethan's hand in mine. There were moments when I wanted everyone to stop telling me I was doing well because I did not feel as though I was doing anything except surviving 1 minute at a time. Ethan stayed where I could see him. He did not tell me to be strong. He reminded me that I already was. When our son finally cried, the sound filled the room so completely that every other thought disappeared. 6 pounds, 12 ounces. Healthy lungs. 10 fingers. 10 toes. The nurse placed him against my chest, and I began to cry. Not because of Adrian. Not because of the last 6 months. I cried because I had made it there. I had not moved into the lake house. I had not accepted the life Adrian designed for me. I had not traded my dignity for the illusion of security. I had walked out without knowing exactly where I would land, and now my son was breathing against my skin. Ethan stood beside the bed with tears in his eyes. "He looks like you," he said. I looked down at the wrinkled little face tucked under my chin. "Are you sure? Right now he looks like a potato. A very distinguished potato. That is not better. A potato with your nose." I laughed softly, and Noah opened his eyes for half a second before closing them again. Several hours later, Adrian arrived at the hospital. He was not allowed to walk into the room. The nurse came to me and said he was waiting outside the maternity unit. She asked whether I wanted to see him. For most of our relationship, Adrian had entered every room as though access were part of his identity. Assistants opened doors. Security recognized his car. Managers abandoned meetings when he appeared. Now he stood on the other side of a locked hospital door and had to wait for my answer. I looked at Noah sleeping in the clear bassinet. 10 minutes, I said. Ethan stayed in the room, seated near the window. He did not stand beside me as a warning, and he did not leave to make Adrian more comfortable. Adrian entered quietly. He looked tired. Not polished, not powerful, not like the man whose photograph appeared in business magazines. He looked like someone who had arrived too late and knew it. His eyes went directly to the bassinet. For a long time, he said nothing. "What's his name?" he finally asked. "Noah Bennett." His gaze moved to me. "Not Cole." "No." "Not Hayes either?" "No." I touched one finger to Noah's tiny fist. "He gets his own name first. When he is older, he can decide what relationships and traditions matter to him." Adrian looked back at the baby. "Can I hold him?" "Not today." His jaw tightened out of habit, but the anger never fully arrived. "I'm his father. Biology makes you his biological father." My voice remained calm. "Whether you become his dad depends on what you do from now on." He lifted his eyes to mine. "You're really never coming back, are you?" There had been a time when that question would have broken me. I would have heard regret and mistaken it for change. Now I heard only the final collapse of an assumption he had carried for years. "Ethan didn't take me from you," I said. "Natalie didn't drive me away." Adrian stood very still. "You told me again and again that I could carry every responsibility in your life, but I was not entitled to make choices about my own." His eyes dropped. "I would have fixed it. You had 3 years." The nurse appeared at the door and gently reminded us that the 10 minutes were over. Adrian stepped away from the bassinet. At the doorway, he looked back. Ethan was adjusting the pillow behind my shoulders. Noah was in my arms, wrapped in a white blanket, his face turned toward my heartbeat. There was no space for Adrian in that picture. For the first time, he understood that no one had stolen his place. He had left it empty until someone else helped me build a life that did not depend on waiting for him. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 1 year later, I became an operating partner at Hayes Risk Solutions. I kept my name. Ethan never asked me to change it. Our marriage was not perfect because no real marriage is. We argued about work hours, money, and whether Noah needed a third set of stacking toys. Ethan still tried to solve problems before I finished explaining them. I still interpreted delays as abandonment more often than I wanted to admit. But when I told him something hurt, he listened. When he needed space, he said so instead of disappearing. And neither of us treated love as permission to control the other. After Noah's birth, Adrian completed the parentage process and began scheduled visits. At first, the visits were short and structured. He attended parenting classes, paid support on time, and stopped trying to communicate through threats disguised as legal concern. He never arrived unannounced. He never sent a car for me. When a visit ended, he left on time even when Noah cried. I did not forget what Adrian had done, and I did not rush to forgive him. Forgiveness was not the price of co-parenting. I simply allowed him the chance to prove, through long and ordinary effort, whether he could become the father he once assumed money automatically made him. Some days he did well. Some days I saw the old impatience in his face when Noah would not follow a schedule or settle down on command. But then Adrian would stop, breathe, and try again. Maybe losing control had taught him the beginning of responsibility. Maybe it had only taught him consequences. Either way, Noah would judge him one day by what he did, not by what he owned. On a rainy afternoon shortly after Noah's first birthday, he took his first independent steps. Ethan crouched at the far side of the living room and opened his arms. I stood beside the sofa, close enough to catch Noah if he fell. He pulled himself upright, wobbled, and looked between us. My hands moved automatically. Ethan glanced at me. I stopped. Let him choose, I said. Noah took one unsteady step, then another. He made it halfway across the rug before falling against my knees. I lifted him, kissed his hair, and set him down again. This time he turned toward Ethan, toddled 2 more steps, and wrapped one hand around Ethan's finger. Rain tapped against the windows. The apartment smelled like coffee, laundry detergent, and the banana bread Ethan had forgotten in the oven until the edges burned. It was not a penthouse. It was not the lake house Adrian once believed should have been enough to keep me. It was simply ours. For years, I thought home was a room a powerful man allowed me to occupy. I thought love meant being useful enough that he would eventually choose me. I was wrong. Home was not a place someone permitted me to enter. It was a life where I did not have to surrender my dignity, hand over my choices, or make myself smaller in order to be allowed to stay. And love was not being chosen after years of waiting. It was being free to choose, and still finding someone beside me when I did.